Christmas 2025 was supposed to be all cozy lights, family smiles, and that fake perfect holiday energy everyone loves to post online. But for Claressa Shields, that day allegedly flipped into something way colder. A quiet kind of betrayal that hits deep. You know the kind, the one that doesn't explode. It just sits in your chest like a weight. So, here's where it gets messy. Claressa goes live inside a Louis Vuitton store, flexing the duffel bag, showing it off in real time. She's holding the bag, showing her purchase, and boom, there's the receipt with her name on it, her money, her purchase. Clear as day. No guessing, no maybe. It's all in black and white. But just a few hours later, that same exact duffel bag pops up again online, being shown off like it's a gift from Papoose. A whole gift. So, if it was a gift, why does the receipt show she bought it? That's the first red flag waving loud. And once that shows up, the whole story starts leaking piece by piece. Then comes the second hit, a store video from that same day, same angle, same vibe. Papoose is holding the camera just like he's been seen doing in Remy Ma's clips before. And here's the real twist. Word is, as soon as that footage started sliding into DMs and circulating, it vanished, deleted out of nowhere like somebody made a quick call to clean it up before anyone could connect the dots. But let's be real, the internet never forgets. And now Tasha K is claiming she already had the clip, already had what she calls proof. That's where everything starts spinning out. I need a trick. I got to put my glasses on. Jay, hold on for a second. I need a trick. Yeah, I need a trick. I need a trick. Was out here looking for a trick. Ain't he got one? Yes. Beautiful girl. Beautiful. Gorgeous girl. Y'all ain't going to tell me Claressa. I'm sorry. She's not don't care what 50. This whole situation went from a messy relationship to something way darker. A full-blown financial triangle. Because the claim isn't just about cheating anymore. It's about power, money, and control. It's not love, it's strategy. The kind of setup where you keep someone close just enough to benefit while the marriage stays nice and protected on the surface. And if you're wondering why money keeps popping up in this story, think tax liens, pawn shop slips, unpaid debts, the whole financial storm. It's ugly out there. When folks start getting desperate, love turns into a disguise. And loyalty, that becomes just another business move. Here's the coldest part, though. If Claressa truly believed she was the chosen one while he was still connected to Remy, then this wasn't a love story at all. It was a trap dressed up as romance. And the way people allegedly talked about her behind the scenes, that slick trick language shows exactly how they might have viewed her. It's cruel. Now, forget all that Christmas magic talk. Because for Claressa, Christmas 2025 wasn't about cozy lights and family warmth. It was supposed to be symbolic, about love and belonging. But instead, it turned into a public contradiction. She said something so soft, so real. I was alone on Christmas. No yelling, no drama, just truth. That single line painted her as lonely, emotionally drained, and left out of the picture. For a moment, people really believed that was it, that she was just heartbroken. But the internet never sleeps. The story kept twisting. The clues kept coming. And suddenly, her silence started speaking louder than anything she said. The thing about timelines, they never lie. And this one, it doesn't just tell a story, it collides with it. Because on that very same day when Claressa Shields was talking about feeling lonely, she was actually live on camera inside a Louis Vuitton store. Not a week before, not after that exact holiday window. Bright lights glowing, designer shelves lined up, expensive bags stacked everywhere, and right in the middle, that famous duffel bag. But here's where it flips everything upside down. The receipt wasn't hidden, wasn't leaked by some mystery account. It was posted right there for everyone to see. Clear enough to read, clear enough to timestamp, and clear enough to prove one thing for sure. That duffel bag wasn't a gift at all. Claressa bought it herself. That's where the first real crack hit the picture. Because just hours later, not days, that same duffel bag popped back up. This time in Papoosia's hands, framed like he was gifting it to her. A whole romantic gesture for the cameras. But if the receipt's in her name, how's it a gift? That contradiction didn't explode instantly. It just hung there, quiet, but heavy. And that's what makes it worse. When questions don't fade, people start digging deeper, pulling at loose threads, and what started as relationship gossip suddenly turned into full-on pattern recognition. Then came the next piece of the puzzle. A video from that same day filmed at a first-door location. The setup was different, but something about the vibe matched perfectly. Same camera grip, same framing, same movement. And guess who's behind the lens? Papoose. Just like he's been seen filming for Remy Ma before. It wasn't wild guessing. It was visual consistency. But here's the shady part. That clip, it disappeared as fast as it showed up, deleted like it was never meant to be seen. And that's when people started realizing this wasn't just coincidence. It was a whole cover-up in motion. That video didn't just fade away. It vanished. Deleted completely. Not lost in the algorithm. Not hidden by time. Straight up removed. And according to the store owner, that wasn't some random accident. The deletion came right after a call. Someone said, "Take it down." But by the time that call came through, the damage was already done. Because that clip had already made its way into Tasha K's hands. And that's the moment everything flipped. The story stopped being about a Louis Vuitton duffel bag and whether it was a gift. It turned into a serious question. Who was where and when? Because the new claim dropped heavy. Papoose, Claressa, and Remy Ma were all in the same city on the same day during that holiday window. That's when the excuses started twisting up fast. Suddenly, people were saying, "Oh, those were 2 different days." But hold up. The kind lines don't bend like that. The outfits were the same. The camera style matched perfectly. The store looked identical. You can't duplicate every single detail and call it coincidence. That explanation didn't land. It just hung there in the air like smoke. And when things hang too long, people start looking closer. I'm sad to report because here's the thing. The Christmas thing. We got to go back to 2025. I'm so sorry about this, y'all. We got to rewind it back. I got to do one spin for this. We got to rewind it back. Okay. SO, the Christmas thing had me bobbing. Had a lot of y'all bobbing. Claressa spent Christmas alone. She was live in the Louis Vuitton store buying a Louis Vuitton bags and a duffel bag. Posted the receipt of the duffel bag online. Had Papoose give her a Louis Vuitton box with a duffel bag in it and forgot that she had posted the receipt stating that she bought the duffel bag that he gifted her. Then she said, "Hey, can you get this online so people would think you bought me something?" Okay, cool. I'ma sit down right here like this. All right there. Put the camera up. Let's go. Same way he was holding the camera for Remy Mom that she claims that he was not with on Christmas Day. Tasha K stepped in and dropped a statement that shifted the vibe completely from detective work to pure unease. She didn't present it as hard proof, but as instinct. She allegedly said her spirit told her something was still happening behind the scenes, that the marriage wasn't really broken, just managed. That what everyone thought was a split wasn't separation at all. It was compartmentalization. And that's when this story stopped sounding like a love triangle and started looking like a financial triangle. Every move, every post, every gift suddenly looked like part of a much bigger strategic game. So, here's how it all lines up. One person fully emotionally available, one marriage still legally locked in, and one steady flow of money keeping everything hanging in the balance. And that's exactly where the story starts getting darker, because mixed in with all these timeline contradictions comes another claim, one that hits way deeper. And when this video came out and they put it in my DM and I posted it, the owner of this fur coat store deleted the videos. He got a call mysteriously to delete immediately, but too late. Tasha K already had it. Boo. Proof. Proof that they was together on Christmas. He was with his kids, his wives. Remy. He held the camera when Remy did her little video. It said Claressa Shields was allegedly sitting on an $8 million win from record deals. Real money. Life-changing money. The kind of number that set you up for the future. But it also brings a heavy question straight to the table. If Papoose was allegedly broke at the time, where did that money go? Or better yet, who was benefiting from it? That's when Tasha K dropped what she calls her receipts. Pawn shop records, jewelry, chains, bracelets, all those flashy items that once screamed success now showing up as collateral. Each one documented like pieces in a financial puzzle. And according to what Remy Ma herself has said in the past, Papoose wasn't helping with the bills, wasn't contributing financially, and was even put out. Then not long after, he was reportedly staying in Claressa's apartment, driving a car, surrounded by her resources. Suddenly, it wasn't just a messy relationship. It was looking like full-on dependency. Then comes the saddest part, the jewelry moment. A chain that Claressa showed off as a birthday gift, calling it new, only to later ask a quiet, almost heartbreaking question. Where's yours? That's when it hit. The chain wasn't new at all. It was his, just rewrapped and recycled. That realization didn't explode in public. It sank in slow. This is the moment where this story stopped being tabloid drama and started feeling deeply personal. A situation where affection got tangled up with survival. Because when money, love, and access all mix together without transparency, the line between care and control gets real blurry. The final beat of this chapter doesn't land with emotion. It lands with paperwork, real documentation, not rumors. In an old video, Remy Ma speaks directly to Papoose, not with a pet name, but straight up by his real name, Willie. And that small detail hits hard because Willie leads right to William aka Will Mackey, a name that opens an entirely different door. Public records start surfacing showing 13 years of unpaid taxes. Federal tax liens and six-figure debt spread across multiple filings. Properties tied up and encumbered. All on paper, not gossip, not speculation. Proof. At this point, the whole story stops feeling like celebrity drama and starts looking like a shaky financial structure. Something being quietly held up by hidden money moves while a public narrative stays loud and polished. And just before this part closes, that infamous footage, the one that started all the chaos, gets brought up again. Tasha K says, "I'm sad to report Christmas Day." And by now, the audience understands every contradiction crystal clear. They've seen the receipt. They've heard the story. They've connected the dots. What once looked like a holiday love moment now feels like a staged illusion. And that illusion has finally cracked wide open. But here's the haunting twist. The last note of this chapter isn't even about the illusion itself. It's about erasure. Because that first Louis Vuitton store video didn't just vanish into the feed. It was removed under pressure. Someone wanted it gone fast. And that's what locks this chapter in place. Not just what was seen, but what was made to disappear. This chapter doesn't end with certainty or closure. It ends with a realization. Because if videos are getting deleted, if timelines stop lining up, if money starts shifting in silence, and if the marriages in question never really end, then this story isn't about what people said. It's about what they tried to erase. And so that's why we weren't able to find details on Papoose and his financial records. And it took us a long time to get these. But when we got these and we saw that he currently owes and has not paid taxes for the past, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, not 9, not 10. By the time the receipts, deleted footage, and Christmas contradictions all settled, one question just refused to die. Why did money keep popping up in a story that was supposed to be about love? At first, it seemed like small things. A bag here, a car there, an apartment switch no one could quite explain. But slowly, that picture started leaning away from romance and straight towards survival. Because here's the truth. Affection can be faked, but debt can't be. And that's when the tone of this story dropped from emotional to official. Paperwork, numbers, cold records. No gossip, no filters. Just filings that don't care. Who's famous or who has fans? According to what's been claimed publicly, the image of Papoose being this generous, steady, financially secure man didn't match what was sitting quietly in the background, the public records. And those records were painting a very different story. And this is where the name starts to matter. Not the stage name that everyone knows, but the legal one. Because once that name hit the surface, the fog around the past disappeared. Suddenly, the timeline got sharper, the debts got real, and the illusion of financial strength started cracking right down the middle. We're not talking about a few mispayments or a bad tax year. This goes way deeper. Over a decade of unpaid tax obligations allegedly stacking up year after year, liens piling, notices building, numbers compounding. The kind that don't just disappear when the spotlight moves on. And that's when the story starts to feel uncomfortable for a whole new reason because it introduces motive. If someone's been carrying that kind of heavy financial pressure, the kind that follows you no matter where you live or who you're seen with, then every move starts to look strategic. At that point, love stops being emotional and starts becoming logistical. Suddenly, all those luxury purchases don't look like celebration anymore. They look like cover-ups, the temporary living setups. They don't feel short-term, they feel survival. And those shiny gift moments that looked romantic on camera, now they feel necessary, like part of a balancing act to keep everything afloat. Then the spotlight quietly shifts because while one side of this triangle was allegedly weighed down by years of unpaid debt, the other side was dealing with their own financial storm. According to public records and past discussions, Remy Ma wasn't standing on solid ground either, allegedly carrying more than $600,000 in tax debt. That's a number that doesn't just stress you. It reshapes you. It changes behavior. It turns silence into strategy. And it binds people together in ways that aren't about love, but about leverage. When two people share that kind of pressure built on reputation, exposure, and old case, money becomes the glue holding it all together, even when the emotions are falling apart. This is where the story cuts sharp. Because if both sides of a marriage are drowning in financial strain, then separation isn't just emotional anymore, it's dangerous. When divorce stops being about freedom, it turns into something much heavier, collapse. And that's exactly where the third point of this triangle starts to look less like a lover and more like a solution. Claressa Shields, confident, successful, earning in real time, suddenly becomes the calm in somebody else's financial storm. And this is where the allegation hits the hardest. Not that she knew or was directly involved, but that she was positioned. Positioned as emotional cover, as financial backup, as someone close enough to help carry weight she didn't even realize she was holding. The words people allegedly used to describe her role weren't romantic. They were functional. Terms like buffer, lick, cash machine, cold, calculated language that strips away affection and replaces it with purpose. It's cruel, but it's what gives this story its sting. Because once you start replaying everything with that lens, the details flip. The duffel bag stops looking like a sweet gift. It becomes optics. The apartment isn't about comfort anymore. It's shelter. The jewelry not a gesture of love, but just rotation. Pieces moving from one place to another. And that Christmas silence Claressa mentioned, it suddenly doesn't feel like loneliness anymore. It feels managed. Because while she was saying she spent the day alone, the claim suggests Papoose was somewhere else entirely with family, with his wife, with a stability that was never officially broken. That's not a loud betrayal. That's the quiet kind. The one that lets someone believe in a future that's already been decided. It's the kind that doesn't scream. It just sits heavy and still, waiting for truth to catch up. And then comes the moment that shifts everything. When speculation starts hardening into something that looks like documentation, no longer rumor, no longer whispers, but statements tied to actual records. And when that clip finally lands, the air in the room changes. The audience stops reacting to gossip and starts reacting to scale. 13 years worth of it. That's not oversight. That's straight-up avoidance. And when avoidance gets mixed with luxury lifestyles and emotional storytelling, it creates a double reality. One for the public to admire and one for survival behind closed doors. This is where the talk of a fake deal starts bubbling up, not as an accusation, but as logic. Because think about it. If money was promised but never really paid out, if a deal existed only on paper, and if those promises were just enough to keep someone invested, then the real payoff wasn't cash at all. It was time. Patience becomes currency. It buys time. Time to dodge consequences. Time to delay. Exposure. Time to keep everything messy but manageable. And that's what circles us right back to the divorce that never happened and the quiet withdrawal that got everyone's attention. Because if actually separating meant opening financial books, dividing assets, facing old debts, and letting the truth spill out, then staying together becomes the safest, smartest move. No public paperwork, no audits, no eyes on the money. Just silence. Safe, contained silence. And that's where Claressa's place in this web starts to look painfully clear. Not as a villain, not as someone scheming, but as collateral. The one whose success, earnings, and public image could quietly float debts without anyone asking too many questions. Someone whose visibility distracted the world while the real financial issues stayed hidden in the background. Her belief in that connection in what she thought was love could have been leveraged like a financial tool. No contracts, no clarity, just access. The man is not divorcing his wife. She's not divorcing him because you are the link. He is going to help his wife to get out of debt using the money that you make from FIFA. So, in my opinion, he's giving you a fake $8 million deal, which is credit. It's there. But if you go win, you don't need it. There's no money. Because this wasn't a love triangle anymore. It was a pressure triangle. And pressure doesn't need affection to function. It just needs access to the right person's stability. By the end of this part, the question changes completely. It's no longer, was Claressa misled? It becomes something way colder. Was she ever even meant to know? Because when a relationship is built around avoidance, honesty becomes the biggest threat of all. The silence around the marriage, the silence around the money, the silence around that deleted footage, they all start to sound exactly the same, controlled. And that's the chilling part. This story doesn't end in rage. It ends in realization. Because the biggest danger here was never just betrayal. It was invisibility. By the time the money trail finally surfaced, it was already too late. The story had passed its point of no return. This wasn't about receipts or mismatched timelines anymore. It became about what silence can build when it lasts long enough to feel intentional. Because in this situation, silence wasn't emptiness. It was structure. Every quiet moment was part of the system. Up until now, people could still brush things off. Say the contradictions were coincidences. The overlaps were misunderstandings. The money drama was just business. But there always comes a moment when the silence itself starts to roar louder than any accusation. And that's when the truth starts slipping out. Not in public, not through headlines, but in the private language people use when they think no one's listening. That's where things turn cold and the tone shifts from gossip to strategy. Because now the claim isn't just that Claressa was misled. Is that she was positioned, carefully placed in a role that made her believe she was chosen. While the marriage she thought was over had never been legally or emotionally dismantled, she was allegedly positioned to feel valued, adored, and emotionally connected. While behind the scenes, everything stayed exactly the same. The marriage stayed intact, the finances stayed linked, and the only thing that changed was the narrative. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all, because she kept investing her time, her loyalty, her money into something that was never built to become real. It wasn't just a relationship. It was a setup dressed like one. That's the line between heartbreak and design. Heartbreak happens when plans fall apart. Design happens when the plan was never meant to include you in the first place. And that's where things turn cold, because the words said behind closed doors start to mean more than any cute caption or public post ever could. According to what's been alleged, Claressa wasn't treated like a partner. She was treated like a function, a buffer when the pressure got heavy, a shield when the finances got tight, a distraction whenever someone needed to shift attention away. Every move had purpose, and none of it looked like genuine affection once you zoom out. That's why the phrase that later surfaced hit so hard, not because it was dramatic, but because it was revealing. The quote, "You are the lick." Those words don't come from love. They come from calculation. They paint a mindset where a person isn't seen as someone to care for, but as a resource to be used, leveraged, and drained. And once you start replaying the story with that lens, the emotional pieces start rearranging themselves. Suddenly, Claressa's soft Christmas confession, "I was alone on Christmas," doesn't sound like self-pity. It sounds like realization. Because while she was sitting there believing she was part of something special, the claim is that Papoose was somewhere else entirely with his wife and child, exactly where the law still recognized him to be. That's not random chaos. That's order. The kind of order built intentionally, one that Claressa was never truly part of. And that right there is the emotional core of this entire story. Not the gossip, not the online noise, but that quiet, devastating moment when someone finally understands what they were living wasn't a relationship at all. It was a structure, one they were never meant to survive in. It was never about love. It was about proximity. And proximity, though, that can be taken away the second it stops serving a purpose. This is where the divorce allegation becomes the key that unlocks everything. Because divorces don't just end marriages. They expose them. They uncover finances, trigger audits, and drag private arrangements straight into legal daylight. But according to what's been claimed, that daylight never came. The divorce didn't move forward. It was withdrawn. And that one decision reframes everything we thought we knew. Because if officially separating would cause the whole financial setup to collapse, expose debts, shared assets, or hidden money moves, then staying married suddenly becomes the smarter, more strategic choice, even if the love part's long gone. And that's where Claressa's position turns tragic. Not because she was naive, but because she was left out of the truth. She wasn't in on the plan, she was orbiting it. Her role wasn't emotional, it was structural. This is where the story stops being about celebrity drama and slides into something much more uncomfortable. A reality that makes people squirm because it asks a question nobody really wants to answer. How many relationships exist just to protect something else? Reputation, death, power, stability, control. And how often is love used as the perfect disguise to cover those motives? As the pressure builds, the claims start cutting deeper. That so-called $8 million deal, the one that sounded life-changing, allegedly wasn't even meant to be cashed. It wasn't about real payout. It was about reassurance. Enough to keep Claressa emotionally and financially invested while other issues were handled behind the scenes. And if that's true, then the final reveal of this chapter isn't about money at all. It's about manipulation. Quiet, organized, and dressed up as affection. At this point, it's no longer about heartbreak or gossip. It's about intention, because once someone realizes they were never supposed to cross that line from access to commitment, the whole illusion shatters in an instant. This is where the interview lands. Not as entertainment, but as exposure. There's no fantasy left to protect after. This clip, no room for confusion, no chance to go back to pretending. Because this isn't being told through the lens of jealousy or bitterness. It's being told as a warning. A warning that Claressa might have been funding a structure that was deliberately built to exclude her. A warning that the marriage she truly believed ended never actually did. A warning that her silence, that calm, collected stay-out-the-drama silence, may have been convenient for the very people benefiting from it. And this is where the story's ending becomes unavoidable. Tasha K's conclusion doesn't come with shouting or drama. It hits quiet but final. She doesn't say the relationship ended. She says it never began, because to begin something real, you need 3 things: honesty, freedom, and no other commitments hanging in the background. And according to what's being claimed, none of those things were ever truly there. So what's left now isn't a mystery. It's a choice. And that choice doesn't belong to the audience. It belongs to Claressa. Does she walk away and drag the truth into daylight, forcing everyone involved to face what's been hidden? Or does she stay silent, continuing to carry the emotional and financial weight of a system that was never built for her benefit? Either way, the illusion is cracked. And once the light hits it, there's no putting it back together again. That's why this story doesn't hit like gossip anymore. It hits like a pattern. You start to see the cycle. Powerful men, blurry relationships, women kept close enough to care, but never close enough to count. Money isn't just a tool here. It's the currency that keeps silence steady and systems protected. And the worst part, patterns like this don't fade when ignored. They repeat. This part doesn't close with outrage or shouting. It ends with clarity. Because once someone finally realizes they were never part of the real plan, there's only one question left to ask. How long are they willing to pay for believing otherwise? And that's when the story stops being entertainment and starts feeling personal. Painfully personal. Because if even half of what's been claimed is true, then this wasn't about confusion or mixed signals or bad timing. It was about design. Carefully planned, quietly managed, and emotionally expensive. Claressa didn't just lose a relationship. She lost her clarity. She was allowed to believe in closeness, while real commitment stayed somewhere else. She was encouraged to keep investing. Her time, her trust, her resources, while the structure surrounding her never once shifted to make room for her. She stood in the spotlight, smiling for the public, while the real decisions were being made behind closed doors she was never invited into. That's not heartbreak, that's positioning. And the most dangerous piece of it all isn't even the money. It's the silence. Because silence keeps the machine running. Silence protects the system. Silence hides the debt, shields the truth, and lets marriages stay legally intact while emotions get outsourced somewhere else. And that's how people get used. Not with cruelty, not with open rejection, but with quiet, controlled exclusion. The kind that lets you believe you're chosen when really you're just convenient. No breakup, no honesty, no clean ending, just distance, neatly disguised as affection. And if you're sitting there thinking, that could never happen to me, that's exactly how stories like this keep repeating. Because they don't begin with lies. They begin with access. They start with comfort, with reassurance, with little promises that sound just real enough to make you stop asking questions until suddenly the receipts appear, the videos vanish, and the timelines collide. And when that happens, the truth hits heavier than the lie ever did. So stop and really ask yourself this. If the relationship was real, why did it need so much silence to survive? If the intentions were pure, why does everything only start to make sense once you follow the money? Because this was never about picking sides. It's about recognizing patterns. And patterns don't care about status, fame, or feelings. They only care that you stay quiet long enough for somebody else to win. Once you see that, you can unsee it. The question now isn't what happens next in their story. The question is, who's still paying the price for a version of love that was never even real to begin with? This right here isn't just tea. It's a warning, A reminder that sometimes silence isn't peace, it's control. And before you go, if this breakdown opens your eyes or made you think twice about how power and love can mix, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let's talk about it.